Do your drawings suck so bad that they make you want to cry? Well, cry no more, because in this video, I'm going to give you my secret art system of 5 tips that will improve the way you draw. And tip number 4 will change your entire outlook on drawing itself. So stay tuned for that. Now, first up in the FART system, we have the letter F, which stands for faces. And no, I'm not talking about the one on your head. I'm talking about... oh, crap. Hold on. These faces. You see how a dice has 6 sides? Well, these are what I'm talking about when I'm talking about faces. There are 6 faces to basically every form that you have. You can simplify it into a dice like this. So in order to draw anything, you need to know what each of your object's faces look like front on before you rotate them. So this would be, where is it? Right, so this would be like the front face. That would be the top face. This would be the bottom face. This would be its right face. Like if that's the front of its face, yeah, this would be its right. This would be its left. And that would be its back face. So definitely want to know what these look like first before you can even think about tilting them. Okay, I said, let me look at my notes here. I said I'll demonstrate with a guitar. A guitar? Okay, I guess so, yeah, because a guitar is a little more complex. So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's set that up. All right. So you can see here, this would be the front face of the guitar. And then that would be the back face. Okay. Oh my gosh. Right, that's like the side face. That's one side of the face. That's another side face. Okay, this is gonna be interesting. This is like the top face. I don't want to drop it, but you get what I'm going for. And then, okay, wow. Lord help me with this one. I can't even see because I'm not that tall, but this is the bottom face. I hope you can see it. Okay. Okay, so just like the guitar and this dice, these faces can be applied to the human body because the body parts, well, the parts of the body can move in different ways, and you want to understand what each individual part looks like front on and from the left side, from the right side, from the top, from the bottom. You want to understand what they look like before you even start twisting them. So when you're drawing, you should be asking, okay, what does the front face of the upper arm look like? What does the bottom face of the foot look like? What does the top of the head look like? These are things you want to know inside and out before you draw them, because when they're in action, no matter what you draw, you're always going to see either one face, 2 faces, or 3 faces. And now all of these faces that you see are, we're going to call them visible faces because, well, they're visible. you can see them. So whenever you're drawing, ask yourself, what do the faces look like for this object? What are the visible faces for this object? Am I seeing 1? Am I seeing 2? Am I seeing 3? When you do this, then your drawings will actually start. I did not proofread my script at all. So when you do this for every object and you draw it in perspective, it's going to look a whole lot more accurate. Now, this concept of faces actually goes hand in hand with the next part of the FART system, which is the A. And A stands for axis extremes. Okay, so for this tip, we're going to throw the dice away and we're going to turn our attention to these weights, which I should be lifting because I've been slacking so much lately. Actually, you know what? Hold on. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, we can move on to the FART system. Where were we again? Oh yeah, axis extremes. So what are axis extremes? Well, if you weren't sleeping in math class, then you learned that the x-axis is like this imaginary line that goes from left to right, and that the y-axis goes from top to bottom. But when we're drawing, there's actually another axis that we use. It's called the z-axis. So the z-axis is just another imaginary line or plane that goes from front to back. So remember how we had the dice. Where is the dice? Right, over here. So remember how we had 6 faces on the dice? Well, each of these faces can switch its position on those axes at any time. So the one, where's the one? Right. The one could be on the front axis, and from a different view, it can be further back to the point where you can't even see it. It could be towards the side, and yeah, it really could be anywhere. So to show what an extreme axis is, or rather an axis extreme, we're going to imagine that every single object that we draw is in a box or a dice. Well, no, box is in a box that's only big enough to cover itself. So in the case of this weight, the box would be something like, okay, so you see how you have this, so the box would line up like that. I'm gonna stop rolling. Go like that. And then these would be the top. Should I draw it? I think let me just draw it. This is gonna be super rough, but I just want you to get it. Okay, so let's move this down. Too much, okay. I need a pen. I didn't know I was gonna be drawing. Okay, so let me try to, so this is our, let me zoom in a little bit, a little more. So our weight, if we're looking at it from a front view, and it's not, okay. If we're looking at it from a front view, then like this is the plate. This is the bar. That's the other plate. Well, that's the other part of the bar. Other plate. This will be the bar. We have 2 of those clamps. One could be like that. This is really rough, but just bear with me. And there's like that. Make sure you can see it. I'm not used to drawing with a camera in front of my face. And that'll be one clamp, and that'll be another, right? So you see how this is the front view. So if we were to have a box around this, the box would be like there, would come down here at the end of that bell. I'm trying to make it touch under there at the plate. All right, so that would be the front view of, come on, of that. Do you see? That would be the box that it's in. And if it was, so you see the top part that it's gonna, the top part of the box that it touches, the bottom parts of the box that it touches, and the front part, but you don't really see the side. So I'll draw the side really quick. Let's see, it's essentially just gonna be a circle that we see. You write it up here first. Side. Okay. And then we have that. The clamps are gonna be like something like that. Are you able to see that? Yes, you can. Okay, and this is whatever it says. .5. I don't even know why I'm doing all these details. Right. So that's what that would be. And the box would essentially just cut off at the top, or we'll touch the top, touch the sides, touch the bottom, touch the sides again. So this would be the box that we would essentially want in every kind of object that we're drawing. So you see how it's just enough, just big enough to put the entire, to go around the entire object. So now what the axis extremes are is basically the parts of the object that touch the faces of the box that it's in. So the axis extremes would be this part right here, the top of the plate, this part right here, yeah, that might be better, the bottom of the plate, the sides of the bells, or the sides of the bars, what am I saying? And then the sides of the actual plates, and then we'll show the top part of it here, and the bottom. All right, so these, all of these points, there are axis extremes because they, you could also see them as just touching points. There's actually one here because it's this, but you just don't see it. But that is also an axis extreme or a touching point. Now, these are important because for any object that you're drawing, if you're seeing any of its visible faces, then you must draw the touching point of that visible face. You have to, because the touching points or the axis extremes, they take priority. They always take priority. If you see the face, so let's say it was like, say this was your box. All right. That's your, oh, I should move that up. Let's say that was your box. Remember how you have, for your axis extremes, you have here and here. So this is the top, the visible faces are, we have three. We have the top one here, we have the side one here, and we have, I guess, the front one here. So you're going to see 1, 2, and 3. So bear with me. So this part right here comes here. And we will see that part right there because it's on the visible, it's the axis extreme, or it's a touching point of that visible face. You see right here is the side. So we look at the side and we have this point of the barbell, or this point of the plate rather. So we would see that probably about right here. And it would wrap around, and also the top. So this is the top face. So we have the top face, the front face, and the side face. So we're going to see the top touching point, the side touching point, and the front touching point of this. So this would be that right there. So we would see that. And we will also see this part, which is that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. This is gonna be super rough, so bear with me. I'm just gonna plot out where this bar is gonna go. Right now I don't really know. Okay. Yeah, so we'll do that. We have the clamps, bar, right, and then you keep going. So now remember, both of these, both of the bells have touching points. So this here and this here. I said this here. So we're going to see this because it's on the visible, it's the touching point of the visible face. If you see a visible face, you will always see its touching point. I actually want to, yeah, edit that. Okay. And we also see the top part. So this is going to be the side. This is the top. Again, this is really rough. I'm just doing this to get the point across. And honestly, you might not even see that extreme because that plate is covering it. But basically, you see how you can see this portion right here. Let me actually go in like that. So this part right here, you can see it because its visible face is right here, and it's an axis extreme, or it's a touching point. Same thing with here. That comes up here. Same thing with this side. That's just that. And the same thing with the top surfaces, because again, visible touching point. Actually, this one was that one, but you get the idea. You get the idea. If you're looking at a visible face, you're going to see the axis extremes or the touching points. Okay, so whenever you're drawing anything, you want to ask yourself, what are the axis extremes of this object? That can apply to weights, that can apply to, let's zoom out. That can apply to people, that can apply to objects, that can apply to faces. It's just, what are the axis extremes of the objects? And what are the touching points? And am I making sure that I can see the touching points on the visible faces? Because if you do this, your drawings will look a lot more accurate. So Now that we've done with that part, we're going to move on to the next letter in our FART system, which is R, which stands for rhythm. So what is rhythm? Rhythm is... no, not that kind of rhythm. The drawing kind of rhythm, specifically in terms of human anatomy. So when it comes to the human form, a rhythm is like the natural flow at each body part that they have linked to each other, which is what makes it look so nice and is actually what makes it work right. So let me go to, where is it? Right here. So here's an example of rhythm. Okay, this weight needs to go. Hold on. So here is an example of rhythm. So whenever you're drawing, like there's a rhythm in the legs, there's a rhythm in the arm, there's a rhythm in the actual relation between the rib cage and the pelvis. So if I was drawing, this is again super rough. Let's zoom in. So this tilts here. This is a really big rib cage. And then the pelvis tilts back. So you see how it follows that rhythm? How it goes from and then if you wanted, you would do the legs. Or I showed the legs already. See how it goes from like there to there to there to there. You get a little back. Come on. Right. See how it goes like that? How it flows. There's a flow, and that is the rhythm. So whenever you're drawing the body specifically, you want to ask yourself, what is the rhythm of this limb? What is the rhythm of this torso? What is the rhythm of the legs? And how much of this rhythm am I seeing? So the whole body has rhythm. And when you learn what all these rhythms are, your bodies will look a whole lot more natural. I actually have some tutorials on that. If you want to go check that out, I'll probably put that in the description or on the end card, but rhythms make or break your body. So now that we're done with that, we're going to move on to the T part of the FART system, which is the tip that I'm almost certain, actually, that you have never heard of. And this right here, this tip right here, when I started using this in my drawings, I noticed a huge improvement in my understanding. Okay, are you ready for this big tip that's going to change your life? Well, here it is. Lines aren't lines. I'll say it again. Lines are not lines. So, what do I mean by that? Tangent, what the hell are you talking about? Are you crazy? Hold on, let me explain. So, you see how, let's use this one. So you see how for the thumb, it attaches with this sort of like fatty, thick pad to the palm of my hand, right? Well, we'll call this whole section the thumb pad, okay? So the point where the thumb pad starts is right here, right? Like that's generally where it's starting. This line right here that curves. Okay. Well, you would think that anytime you're drawing the thumb pad, you'd always be drawing that line, right? Right? Wrong. And I will show you how you're wrong. So let's test it out. So I'm gonna put my nail right here on this starting line of the thumb pad. And now I'm gonna turn my hand just a little bit. Okay? Now, what do you see? Do you still see a curve? Sure you do, but hold on. You can't see the tip of my nail anymore. which means that you can't see the starting line of the thumb pad. But you're still seeing a curve. So what in the world is this curve here that you're seeing? Well, what you're seeing is not the starting point of the thumb pad. What you're seeing is the thickness of the thumb pad. This curve right here is what I call the turning point. It's the part of the form where things are turning away. They're turning away from us, and where the rest of the form is actually hiding behind. So when you're drawing, what you don't want to do, a huge mistake that I've been making for years, and I see a lot of beginners make, is they try to force showing that starting line. They try to force this, but the thing is, you're not always gonna see it. And if you try to force it, like if I was doing this, and I tried to force that starting line that's hiding behind here, it's gonna look flat, it's gonna look skewed, and it's gonna look off. So whenever you're drawing something, whether it's from reference or imagination, you wanna ask yourself, am I able to see the starting point of this muscle or this body part? Or am I simply seeing the turning point of it? Am I simply seeing the thickness of it? Because if you are seeing just the thickness and you try to draw the turning point, if you're seeing the thickness of it and you're trying to draw the starting line, it's gonna look off. It's gonna look off and it's gonna look flat. So remember that things curve around, sort of like a hill, because objects have volume. They have thickness to them. So it's gonna hide some stuff. So many times you'll see muscles and you'll think that it's the starting line. It's not the starting line. It is the turning point or just the thickness. So always ask yourself, am I seeing the thickness or am I seeing the starting line? Now, if you do this, your drawings will 100% look more three-dimensional. And with that, we can now move on to the second T in the FARTS system, which is tilting. Okay, so for this technique, or this tip rather, I'm going to use the dice. Okay. This book right here. Now, this is not just a book. This is a book with a rubber band on it, obviously. But this rubber band, what it represents is the half of this book. Hang on. Is it? Yeah, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. That is like the exact halfway point of that. Now, we're going to treat this brown cover as if it's the face of a die and pretend like that string is splitting the top half and the bottom half. Okay? Now, if we're facing the camera front on, you're gonna see as much of the top half as you see the bottom half. But as we tilt, you're gonna see less of the half that's tilting away from you and more of the half that's tilting towards you. You see less of the half that's tilting away from you and more of the half that's tilting towards you, or towards your screen rather. So treat everything, every single thing. Remember how I said put everything in a box? See everything as having this halfway line. Because very, very rarely will anything be straight on like this. Things are going to be tilting back, or they're going to be tilting forward. They're going to be tilting some way. So always remember or be mindful of this line right here. And remember that if a half of it is tilting towards you, you're going to see more of it. And if it's tilting away, you're going to see less of it. So always ask yourself, okay, where is the center line of this thing that I'm trying to draw? Which half is coming towards me and which half is going away from me? If you do that, they're gonna look a whole lot, your drawings are gonna look a whole lot better. Your drawings are gonna look a whole lot better. Even if it's just a slight tilt, even if it's just like a tiny bit of a tilt, just because you know, plane passing by, because yes, if you if you keep in mind that there's always something going towards and away from you, it's gonna show up, and it's gonna be that subtle difference maker that really takes your art to the next level. So always remember the tilt. The tilt, okay? And now I'm actually gonna give you a bonus tip for the FART system. And this will be for S. So what is S? S is simplify. S is simplify. So the way in which I don't have anything. I actually do. Hold on. Okay, so S is simplify. Now, with this, it's kind of weird to show it traditionally, but I have this here, right? And basically how I simplify is by using pixel art. Now, if you don't know what pixel art is the art of using squares to draw or paint an object. And I only recently started doing this, but I've noticed that doing pixel art actually helps me a lot with not really getting carried away or lost with the details. Like it really, really helps you to see the most important shapes of the human form or whatever form it is that you're drawing. Because for the longest time, I would be wondering why my drawings would look off. But then when I started doing pixel art and like traced over bodies with it, I realized that my drawings looked off because I had a habit of making my curves too extreme. Because for me, if I see a curve, I just feel I feel the need to exaggerate it. I feel the need to make sure that it's known that yes, this curve is here. Even if it's super subtle, I want to make sure it's known. Because, I don't know, I guess it's like I feel like it's a subconscious fear of mine that my drawings look flat. But the thing is, sometimes you want to go for simplicity. So I've been actually simplifying my curves in my drawings, and I've actually been seeing massive improvements because for me, since I make my curves so extreme, by me thinking to myself, okay, I have to make a line straight, it's actually just going to be a subtle curve that's exactly how subtle it needs to be because of how skewed I am to like drawing super hard curves. Now, I mean, there's that, and I also think that it would definitely be beneficial. It helps if you can make something readable in pixel art, because if you can make something readable and look good in pixel art, then you can totally do that with just like a pen or paper in a traditional medium or a digital medium. Now, I recommend using 60 pixel by 60 pixel to do your pixel art for whatever your canvas is. This is definitely not 60 by 60. This is, I don't know, this, actually I wrote it down somewhere. This is 17 by 23. Okay, wow, that's really off. But notice how it's only her face. If I'm doing an entire body, I definitely want to up this number. Definitely want to do that. And I genuinely believe that if you get good at doing pixel art or making things readable in pixel art, then it will look pretty good in whatever regular other medium you're using, whether it's regular paper or digital art or things like that. Now, I use 60 by 60 pixels because I feel like that's the sweet spot. Because if it's too little pixels, you're not really going to be able to convey anything. You're not going to be able to draw anything, because if it's like literally just 4 pixels, it'll be like this size. that'll be your canvas, and you don't want that. You want to be able to actually draw something. But if you have too many pixels, then it's basically just going to be like regular drawing, and that defeats the purpose. So 60 pixels by 60 pixels is a good point to try to simplify your form in. And I actually have a video on that where I simplified the limbs. I simplified the arms and the legs. I showed their 4 faces in pixel art, and you can still read them. Like, they still look like good arms and good legs. And if you can do that, then you can do even better when you have more control and more room to work with, like a pen or a brush or a pencil or whatever it is that you would normally use. So definitely go check out those videos, because I think that ever since I've had to force myself to make those videos, my limbs have looked a whole lot better. So definitely would recommend pixel arts. Like, whenever, or even if you're not going to do pixel art like that, I would recommend definitely asking yourself, how would I draw this if it was pixel art? How would I simplify this, and what would I exaggerate? Would that turn really be that big? Would it be more subtle? Would it be more of a straight line? Like, what would it be? And that's it. Those are the 5 tips. One is, or the F is for the faces. Remember the faces of the die. You want to know what these faces look like for every single one, because you see how this is a 3/4 view right here. So this, if this was a die, if I was putting a box around it, it would look like that. It would look like this. Is it focused? Can you focus? Okay, it's not going to focus because I'm using my phone camera. But yes, it would look something like this. And in order to draw this, you first need to know what this looks like, and you need to know what this looks like. So that's the faces. Then you have the axis extremes, or the touching points. Basically, it's just the parts of the inside of the form that touch the parts of the box that it's in. And then you have rhythms, which I showed you was the flow of the form in terms of like the human body, but there's also that same sort of flow in animal bodies. So just like organic bodies or organic things in general, they have a sort of flow and rhythm to them. And then we have turning points, or thickness, which is, again, it's that you're not always going to see the starting line. Things have thickness, so things are gonna be hidden. So it's like a hill. Yeah, it's like a hill. So it's like, oh, you're walking, you're at the top of the hill, and then boom, you're behind the hill. You're not seeing all my finger anymore. See that? So you'd be drawing the thickness, not the starting line. So it's like because with the starting line, we imagine that the starting line is the line. But now our line is not the line anymore. It's just representing a turning point. So that's that. And then the second T was tilting. Think of, it rolled. Yeah. Put everything in halves. You could even do that for left to right. Like if I were to put that, it would turn away like that. But again, you just see it like that. And whichever side is tilting towards you, you're going to see more of, and whichever half is tilting away from you, you're going to see less of. And then the last one is simplify. Okay, just simplify. You don't necessarily need to do pixel art to do this. You can just make straighter lines or make simpler curves, but do what you need to do to simplify and make things more readable, because if you can make things readable when you simplify them, then you can definitely make it more readable when you use your regular tools. when you use your regular tools and you have that freedom to do whatever it is to make all those different nuances and all that stuff. So that's what that is. If you want to know how to do any of the tips, whether it's finding the faces or the axis extremes or things like that, I have tutorials on my channel. I would recommend watching them. And hopefully this helped. Hopefully you were able to get something from this. And if it did, let me know in the comments. If it didn't, also let me know in the comments, because I would love to know what it is I can improve on. I myself am not perfect. I'm just learning and doing my best just like you. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.